Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Iron Canon podcast, your home for in-depth discussion on lore, the High Republic, and the whole canon of the galaxy far, far away. My name is Matthew. I am coming to you from Underworld North Studio on this side of the border, Toronto, Ontario, Canada. As always, I'm joined from across the continent by your friend of mine, Mr. Joel Davis. Joel, it's coming down to the wire. How you feeling this week?
Oh, every emotion under the sun, I can tell you, and it's like, I swear, I think the people who say we have PTSD, I think they're right. I think there is a
Yeah,
collective of people who really do have PTSD and really can't tell the forest from the trees, and I don't blame them.
yeah,
I don't blame them.
yeah.
So
Sure.
yeah, that's how I'm doing. And although I felt more sick this morning, but now I feel really good.
Yeah, I definitely don't blame anyone who lives in the U.S. who's an American citizen or not an American citizen who lives in the U.S., even them, especially or including. Um, yeah, I don't blame you. But also, what can we do? The whole world is at stake here, so I'm feeling it too a little bit. But yeah, definitely take care of yourself. Is the point I'm trying to drive at. Take care of yourself. Focus on what you find hopeful and positive, joyful, but also uh, feel the stress, feel what you need to feel you need to feel. Tonight we're going to talk about it. Talking about the presidential election, but specifically, of course, in terms of Star Wars, and then even more specifically, not necessarily entirely, but definitely the prequel trilogy zeroed in on a specific but important question about politics in Star Wars. What does democracy sorry, what does democracy need to survive? And of course, George Lucas' preferred medium in this case was a cautionary tale rooted in his concern that democracies aren't stolen, they're given away. And so on the eve of the presidential election, this is the first presidential election in Iron Cannon's run. So why not? We look at Lucas' vision of democracy in the galaxy far, far away, what we can do to preserve it in our own world. Um, Diving into all that in just a bit. So the plugs out of the way first. You can follow us at Ion Cannon Pod, EYEONCANON. That's on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. We are proudly part of the Star Wars Underworld Podcast Network. So give them a follow and a like as well at the SW on all the channels. Here on the Underworld YouTube channel, we got memberships, we got super chats. So please do comment away in the boxes. Uh, Hopefully keep the conversation civil. If you would like to support the channel either through a membership or a super chat, we'll be most grateful. Of course, super chats, you can donate to Canverse, and your your question, your comment will go to the top of the pile. Also, the Underworld Discord server is going strong, definitely going strong. Joel, you and Ben doing a great job keeping the lights on as always. And there's a good core of regulars, I think. I noticed commenting there and chatting there. So if anyone wants to come in, join the regulars. The water's fine. Again, keep it civil, keep it positive, constructive. Obviously, have your opinions, but be constructive and positive about them. I don't know what's going on with my voice right now. Uh, yeah, but on that note, in the Discord, the link in the description below, please feel free to join. Are there any events coming up? I think there was one this
Yes,
past weekend, but any
we
else coming up?
we had a game night last week, and this week we're gonna do something a little different. We're gonna do actually something a little non-Star Wars related. Although it is somewhat Star Wars related, but tangentially. We will be watching a movie, not just any movie. We will be watching Godzilla minus one, and the Star Wars connection there is that the Godzilla minus one director, uh, Takashi Yamazaki,
Mhm.
actually did visit Lucasfilm this year, I believe, or was it last? Yeah, I think it was this year because it was after minus one came out.
Yeah,
Because he was, all the rage because of how great that movie was, and he got to meet Dave Filoni, and Dave Filoni's also a big Godzilla fan,
yeah.
so two of them got to chit chat. So we will be watching that Friday.
And if you need help connecting to Star Wars, just imagine it's Coruscant. Just imagine it's a certain cortosis clad. I don't know if it's cortosis clad monster roaming around Coruscant still. I guess they dealt with that in Bad Batch, but yeah. Yeah, so check that out. I haven't actually seen that movie. So that's
Well,
interesting.
join us if you can. It's
Yeah.
kind of amazing. It's like really good.
What and what time are you guys planning on like doing that?
6 o'clock Pacific.
Yeah, Eastern. Okay.
30 minutes after right now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
not now, but you know what I mean, right? So 6 my time, which would be 8 or
9.
9 your time, right?
Yes. Yeah. So time change. We still change time change. Bear with us. We are also dealing with the time change. It's kind of taking a toll a little bit. I got it. Speaking of things that Congress and Parliament need to take care of. There we go. So yeah, feel free to join in on that. The water's fine there. Yeah, I'll think about it. I'll definitely think about it.
Really?
I admit I haven't done one in a while, so I'm due. I guess the Star Wars rewatch still in Young Jedi Adventures, but that's fine. That's all
We're
good.
taking a bit of a break from that because I just like doing games.
Yeah, that's fair too. I mean, that's the thing. Games. It seems to be just a bit of a tangent here. The games thing seems to be really conducive to or at least that setup seems to be really conducive to the games night. You guys just hang out and play games and chat on the Discord voice thing, right?
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. Yeah, feel free to check that again. Link in the description below. Also on the Discord. I mean, we're all in there. Too late to wish Ben a happy half birthday, but you can ask him what his favorite ice cream flavor is, and check that out. Of course, talk about Star Wars, chat about Star Wars, chat about Marvel, Agatha all along, Star Trek, anything you want. There's an anything goes thing. There's even a sports channel. It's mostly me doing things about soccer, but fun times. And there's a food one too. So anyway, it's fun. It's a good way to hang out. Yeah, still going strong, which is rare in our day and age for things to keep going like this. So well done to you and Ben and the crew in the Discord server. Speaking of things that aren't going on, well, just for this week, I promise. Tractor Beam Comics reviews. Normally Chris Abbott and I, one second ago. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Chris Abbott and I, what train of thought? Talk about the comic books that came out that week. Sorry, getting this time change, getting me all over the place.
I know, right? I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, so Chris Abbott and I talk about the comics that came out that day on Wednesdays, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, right here on the Underworld channel. We're taking a break this week. I got another thing to go to, so yeah, we'll take a break. There was only one comic that came out. It's coming out this week anyway. It's Battle of Jakku, Insurgency Rising number 4, number 3, number 4. And so yeah, number 4. So we'll push that to next week, as well as my inserted issue finally came in. So time to read that, time to catch up. But also, yeah, we'll take a break. We've done plenty. Chris has done so much stuff over on his channel. So yeah, we're kind of due to just to lay low, and I got another thing to deal with there to go to that on Wednesday. So anyways, the next week do come back Monday, and then Wednesday again we'll be definitely talking about comic books. We'll be back, but until then, yeah, we'll take it easy. Of course, who knows how we're feeling tomorrow, so might want to just chill anyways. But yeah, those are the plugs. Pick those back up at the end. Feel free to yeah, follow us. Please do give a like and share. Also, this video, give this video a like, and give the channel a follow. Alrighty, enough of me gabbing. Joel, what's up with you in Star Wars this week?
Yeah, it's my turn. To gab because I got some gabbing to do. All
Mhm.
right. So several weeks ago, I stumbled across through forums somebody who says that they have insight into the animation industry because some of their friends are animators.
Mm.
Some details on the original pre-Disney buyout draft of Siege of Mandalore, the season 7 or the series finale. I have to say series finale. Who knows how many people these Clone Wars got? Series finale of Star Wars: The Clone Wars, the 2008 show. I did some digging, and this seemed pretty legit. I'm pretty good at sniffing out the BS from the shaft.
Good.
And I believe them. I believe that this draft is real. That this was plotted. They even have some little pictures here of some of the stuff that they showed. So I'm gonna just read it out as best I can, and then get your reaction, and then maybe read a little bit of comments that they left. So here we go. The original Seats of Mandalore. They're very blunt, so this isn't very eloquent. The original Seats of Mandalore. Ahsoka would have been annexed back into the Order, or at least into the Republic Army, and promoted to the rank of general in order to have her lead the siege on behalf of the Jedi. Ahsoka would still have her old lightsaber, although there was debate because Dave wanted to change them and make them blue, but in the original draft they were green. Maul would have worn a robe like he did in Phantom Menace. There was no battle between Bo-Katan and Almec, yet Almec would have been the one who brought Ahsoka and Bo to Darth Maul. So Almec was still acting as Prime Minister, and Maul would have been hiding and Maul would not have been hiding in the sewers like he does in the final season. Rex would have had a more prominent role as opposed to just being a casual support for Ahsoka. The clones would have had a more prominent role in capturing Maul as well, like they did with General Grievous in the previous episode of the show. Ahsoka wouldn't have been all that spiteful against the Jedi in the original treatment of the story. There was no scene in Ahsoka jumping from the gunship to gunship, and instead would have been more of a landing point rain type situation where Republic gunships are basically gunned down until they make it close to Sundari. At some point, Maul would have removed his robes and would have been with his black clothing like he was in Season 5 of the Clone Wars and in the final season. Later, he would appear bare-chested like he was in Season 4 instead. Some recreated scenes of Revenge of the Sith would have been shown, but very brief ones and not important scenes, like when the Jedi Council was reunited around the hologram chamber, for example, to talk about Palpatine's prolonged stay in office. We would have seen from Ahsoka's perspective we would have seen that from Ahsoka's perspective like we done in the final season, but the show would have then also cut back to Coruscant to show the Jedi perspective while looking at Ahsoka's hologram. So it looks like we would have gotten some actual just little recreations of Episode 3.
Interesting.
Maul and Ahsoka would have been oblivious to Order 66. The whole luring Skywalker to kill him subplot that Maul put into place was absent in the original drafts. Bo-Katan was also more laid back and calm, level-headed, and overall more similar to how she was in Season 5, trusting the Jedi guidance more. At the end of the arc, Ahsoka, with the rank of Jedi in general, would have appointed Bo-Katan as provisional leader of Mandalore, and Bo-Katan would have accepted. Order 66 would have taken place on Mandalore at some point as the planet was captured and more clones arrived. This would have started a chase for Ahsoka where the clones hunt her down. Maul was killed by Order 66. Palpatine gave special orders to execute him before the clones were basically contributed to the overall cleanup that Sidious had put in place when he ordered Darth Vader to kill all the separatist leaders on Mustafar. Rex's fate was still undecided and up in the air at this point. But it was considered to just have Ahsoka kill him to protect herself like Yoda did on Kashyyyk when he executed his own personal battalion, who would have been loyal to him, but at that point, they'd already turned on him. Or, another possibility floating around was that Rex executed Order 66, and at the end, he snaps out of it, or at least he had the realization of what he had done, and he executes himself. Something along the lines of having a piece of dialogue where he says, the general meaning Ahsoka, Republic, all gone. And then he bangs himself or takes lethal injection. Ahsoka died because of Order 66 in the original draft. Although Dave had always an alternative ending ready just in case George changed his mind, where he would have Ahsoka escape on the back of some giant wolves with the clones were hunting her down in case it would have ended on a cliffhanger. There was an idea that had a lot of clones that would unalive themselves after Order 66 was done because the inhibitor chip drove them mad. Also, Maul would have executed his own Mandalorians if they failed during the battle, and they would have been a shadow of Maul, and there would have been a showdown of Maul against the clone in Prequel fashion, where Maul is on a rampage after escaping custody, while they were preparing the ship to depart from Coruscant. Now, since some of the battles in the Outer Rim sieges were already won, the Republic would have sent more and more clones to secure the planet, which had already been captured and won over. So, Mandalore having been secured by the Republic and with the siege ended, the Republic would have sent more and more clones to reinforce base and hold out. This would, of course, major problem with Order 66 triggered, and there were too many clones, and the clones became deadly and overwhelming numbers. 2 more paragraphs, almost done. Ahsoka would have died like any other Jedi, meaning on the battlefield where they were sent. So Aayla Secura died in Felucia, Keanu Mooney on Megiddo, Ahsoka would die on Mandalore. The scope and magnitude of the battle would have been much larger than the original draft. Maul wasn't planning to surrender Sundari in order to lure Anakin in, so the battle would have been all out. It was already hinted by the end of Season 5 when Obi-Wan opens the hangar door and all heck breaks loose during the scene where Bo-Katan says to him, Maul must really want you dead. Maul would have also fought both with Darksaber and double-edged lightsaber, which would also cut which would have been cut in two, forcing him only to use one, and then forcing him to use the Darksaber. But then the clones and the Mandalorians were in the room, Ahsoka capturing Maul and fight him. All right, not as eloquent, but that was it.
Yeah.
Instant react.
Good.
Sorry
I
if
mean,
I
with
talk
all
so
these,
fast. I want to get.
that's okay. It's okay. I caught it. My yawns. With all these, it's always a question of the first thing we think about, at least, is how does this compare to what we got? And it's interesting, something or what stayed and what's different. Of course, and a lot of things are different. And what stayed, the Jedi Council scene, um, Maul kind of wreaking havoc a little bit. Um, but yeah, I mean, for a lot of it's wildly different. A lot of that, it goes to show how much what we end up getting in Rebels then has to affect what happens in the end of Clone Wars, with Ahsoka staying away from the Order and uh, you know only coming back kind of halfway. But it isn't an official Jedi action. That, and I think that kind of tracks more. I guess they would have had to figure out a good political military reason to actually siege Mandalore, um, whereas in this there wasn't. Right? They had to, especially given the circumstances. Obi-Wan and Anakin, they have to go rescue the Chancellor. They got to go. They can't really. Oh, something just fell. I'll fix that.
Oh no.
That's important. I got to fix that. I'll grab it in a little bit.
Okay.
What is it? We're train of thought here. They have to go rescue the Chancellor, and yeah, it's just Ahsoka and half of the 501st going, of course, the 332nd going to Mandalore because out of Anakin's own generosity for her. Yeah, it's hearing that maybe it's just in that description, but it sounds to me like it wouldn't have been as moving or as poignant. It would have been an exciting military action, but especially with Rex. I mean, I guess that there's still a very, very moving, poignant story with Rex there, but for Ahsoka to be so involved in it and everything with the inhibitor chips and him taking out his inhibitor chip. I mean, that's the thing, is my single favorite half or 20-minute episode of Clone Wars is that second last episode where Order 66 happens, and then it ends with Ahsoka taking a Rex's inhibitor chip and that cliffhanger about what's going to happen. And so, yeah, I mean, again, I'm guessing this would also have been just a little iteration, a first iteration, but yeah, and it would have had more rewrites to be more poignant again. But
It does sound like, though,
yeah,
from the comments, I'll just add that
yeah,
he talked about that George was very adamant of not having Ahsoka and Rex survive this because
yes,
they're not in the
that's the
movies.
biggest change.
That was
Yeah.
a George thing, which I think is interesting. It's one of those things that
Mhm.
I think we as fans don't think about when it comes to the Clone Wars a lot. It's like,
True.
yeah, we always think kind of gave the credit for Clone Wars because he very much was the public face. But George made a lot of the big, the big boy decisions, the big decisions. Like,
Yeah.
he was the one who decided I'm gonna bring Maul back because I didn't want to
Mhm.
do Savage. And then it's like, oh, actually, we gotta kill him off too because he's not in the movie, so we gotta kill him off. And
Yeah.
okay, she's not in the movie, so I don't want her there. Kill her off. And the Rex, he's gonna get old and die, clone, so gotta kill him off too.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. That because Clone Wars is set so further back, we don't think about the whole, oh, where were they when Luke needs them kind of thing. Whereas with Rebels, they do have to solve that for Ahsoka and for Ezra. Of course, Ahsoka on Malachor and Ezra. In a similar kind of thing that sounds like what Dave's backup plan. He kind of reuses that for Ezra a little bit, right? Going to
Right.
escaping on the Purgle. So, uh, yeah, I mean, it would have set up a whole. Thinking back now, here's the thing: is if we had gotten then all the subsequent storytelling that we have, it would have been very different. Um, Rebels, of course, would have been very different. I mean, not that it's a testament to that show that Ahsoka has an influence on that show, but she doesn't take over. They had to be very careful about that. But yeah, I mean, it would have the Ahsoka. Well, obviously, Ahsoka wouldn't have been able to happen because she'd be dead. Would have been called Ezra or Sabine or something. But
Right. One
yeah,
one more thing, and then we can move on because I don't want to
hmm
make this the whole episode because this is a really fun discussion, though.
hmm
I am curious how far back this draft goes
hmm
because they kill Maul, but then what is the whole Darth Maul and the sequel trilogy thing all about then? Because I have a bit of a conspiracy
yeah,
theory about
that's true.
that, and this actually is not my conspiracy theory. This is somebody else's.
hmm
I've been reading on the forum, and that is that the I've always and they suspect or they kind of wonder, did George do that, put the whole Maul as the villain for the sequels in his quote unquote his treatments, less as because of a story reason or more because he really was trying to make the deal with Disney a lot sweeter, like, hey, here's this character people like in the toys. He's actually a villain for my sequel trilogy that you can buy and make the monies off of. Um, or did George really, or was George gonna let Maul survive? Because, like, I mean, because again, the whole creation of the sequels is one of those weird things of like, I don't really know what's true. Or maybe not what's true, but more like what George was really all about, and how much of it is like, I need to make a little money because Lucasfilm's
Yeah.
going to go downhill if I don't do something. So maybe we should bring back Maul, and like, oh, that'd be fun. And then maybe later he would have changed to something else because or
hmm
how early it's like how dedicated to killing off Maul in Clone Wars was he compared to bringing him in the sequels, and when did that all kind of come together? Which is sort of an interesting timeline on its own.
hmm
So that's like, I guess, my last kind of thought on
Yeah.
this.
I mean, you remember George Lucas? He's a prequelist. Which is a silly thing to say, but you know what I mean. Um, for him, Maul is a beloved character that he created. Uh, him and Scott McKay, Ian McKay, I forget his name, the design that for George, these events of the prequel trilogy. What I always say is, it's not prequel, it's mainquel, and so this character can have a prominent role in a sequel trilogy, and so he was probably holding on to that, and that seems to be part of it. I mean, not the only reason, but this tie to say, yeah, the events. I mean, everything with the midichlorians, for example, that whole idea, wild idea. In his mind, yeah, the prequels really set up the world at that point. You know, by whatever it was, 2010, 2011, in his mind. So yeah, I think that was part of it. That um, maybe partly once Clone Wars got canceled, and Maul's fate is up in the air. Then yeah, now all this to say, here's the thing: is Twin Sons, hands down, we all agree, is one of the greatest 20 minutes of Star Wars television. Siege of Mandalore is my favorite television episode of all time. My favorite 2 hours of television of all time, and I like Star Trek. um, that's Star Wars. Siege of Mandalore. It's Revenge of the Sith and in Clone Wars. So I'm glad we got what we got. I don't know how you can improve on it. Um, but it is interesting to say that um, the idea of a Siege of Mandalore that had really been in the works from the very beginning, or at least, I mean, we don't, when would this have been? This has probably been, you know part way through. Just was this from just before it got canceled, or I mean, who knows when this sort of treatment was starting to develop? But um, I mean, clearly, the reason, maybe this is the most positive point to make out of this. The reason the Siege of Mandalore is so perfect is because they had planned it and started plotting it and thinking about it early on, and further back, and so that the way it ties up Ahsoka and Rex's story so perfectly and so beautifully, and Maul's story to some extent, too. Well, not to some extent, to a big extent. Uh, yeah, they built that through in the season, in the series. So um yeah, yeah, it's good that they had this idea. I'm glad they got to really finish it in the way Dave really wanted to.
It's interesting though. It's the way Dave really wanted to, but did George really want to? I like again. If George had not sold, and we got Siege of Mandalore,
Hmm.
is Ahsoka alive? That's the real question: is does she live?
I think
Uh
Dave would have convinced him rather.
it would have been interesting. I don't know. I mean, it would be interesting to see. We don't. We don't. Well, it would have
No,
been interesting to see. I don't know, but yeah, I just wanted to share that because I think it's
yeah,
a really cool what if kind of
yeah,
thing.
no, it is for sure. Um, and there's definitely story again that they take in other story that they can use for other reason, other ways. Um, either way, I mean, maybe the biggest point is Ahsoka as a general, as a leader, as a commander. That does come back, of course, in uh, episode 5 of Ahsoka, the series. So,
Right.
um, yeah, it was, yeah, really, yeah. Again, her development, her growth, plotted out there. So yeah, also my favorite episode of live action Star Wars, which by the way, the comic adaptation is coming out this week as well. So
Well, I
might
mean,
actually, yeah,
I'm actually interested in that just to kind
I,
of
I
see.
might pick it up just to see what happens. No, I'm just kidding, just to see what it looks like. I mean, Rodney Bardens, he knows what he's doing, but we all know what I think about the adaptations. But this one, I might make an exception. I will make an exception for. So
I mean, they don't have the but. I mean, they don't have to deal with budget, so they can actually maybe add a little bit more to the flashback stuff if
they
they
could
want.
finish the Acolyte if they want. Yeah. All right. Oh yeah, I got my thought.
All right.
Super nerdy. This is gonna be really weird for me. I mean, the kind of things I sometimes think about. Because I always think, well, let me pull the screen up here. This guy, which when Dom's in this chair, you can see him in all his glory.
Old shock
Yeah,
troopers.
let me. Sorry, guys, I'm
So,
playing with this thing here. Still not right. Still not right. There
there
we
we
go.
go.
No, 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 no,
A
no,
little
no.
too low.
There we go. Okay. No, I
There
never
we
do that ever again. Okay.
go. Okay.
Um, Coruscant Guard and Shock Troop. It's still not right. Still, there we go. Okay. Nope. I did the wrong way. What am I doing, Matthew? Live on YouTube, fiddling with the camera. Hope this is funny,
Technical
guys.
difficulties,
I hope
folks.
this is funny. Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
it's fine. Um, yeah. So I was chatting with Chris Abbott because he collects the Star Wars card game. I forget what it's called. This is still bugging me.
Those card games that are not canon, even though Wikipedia thinks.
Whatever they're called. Yeah. Anyway, and so any prequel cards he gets in a pack, he shows me. Of course, he got a Clone Wars set, so he's just showing me the whole thing. And there's a Phase 1 Shock Trooper. I don't know if there's a Phase 2. Probably is, but anyway. So, of course, the claim to fame here is Underworld is probably the only podcast in the world with a 3 foot tall Coruscant Guard clone trooper in its backdrop. That's got to be the case. This guy, I got this in Anaheim at Celebration Anaheim. On in the last few minutes of Celebration, I was like eyeing it all weekend. Anyway, thinking about uh, why Coruscant Guard and Shock Troopers are interchangeable, and why why the terminology now during the big first episode of the Bad Batch. I think you have Hunter or somebody. You get the troops on Camino. Set to trying to bring in the New Order. Uh, any Jedi around, they take him out. They're really just to ensure the clone troopers are in line. And he says, "Oh yeah, shock troops and on Camino. What's going on?" Um, and yet they're also called the Coruscant Guard, which, when you think about it, you know, Coruscant Guard is a very cushy, polished job, basically security force for the Chancellor and the Emperor and for the Senate. Um, and where shock troopers, my Black series of Commander Fox, he's all muddied and all he's been in the field. He's seen some action as a shock trooper. Whereas when we see him in Clone Wars season 5, the Ahsoka, leaving the order there. He's all on Coruscant. He's hunting her down. There's no mud on Coruscant. What's going on? Here's what I think kind of happened is, Revenge of the Sith, the clones that accompany Palpatine in the Senate to try and find Yoda onto Mustafar. I believe they're also Coruscant guards. Is that right? Or no, those could be the yeah. I'm trying to remember here. Definitely the ones in the Senate to accompany Palpatine. They're the red Coruscant guards, my beautiful, lovely Coruscant guards. Probably to tie them to the Red Imperial Guard, which of course are already there in Revenge of the Sith. But to say, when it comes to Coruscant, comes to the Chancellor in the Senate or the Emperor in the Senate, you got red. You get the red. Then Battlefront 2 comes along, or some video game. We tried to research this, Joel. I asked you to look this up, and you scoured the internet, and you did your best.
Yeah,
you did. You really did. And I did too a little bit. Looked around, poked around, trying to find the Hasbro Shock Trooper, Imperial Shock Trooper, with also the red. Similar kind of markings, clearly some sort of evolution from the Coruscant Guard mask, but obviously Imperial Stormtrooper doesn't look as nice, quite frankly. And those are shock troopers. By that time, of course, there's the Red Imperial Guard that we see in the original trilogy and elsewhere. And so what I think happened is a sort of retroactive thing happened where, okay, these shock troopers, they kind of look like Coruscant Guard, the Imperial shock troopers, the stormtroopers look like Coruscant Guard. So let's say, okay, well, I guess the Coruscant Guard must have also been shock troopers. Kind of this real world conflation of the two. And I've always been a little confused by that. I'm still, frankly, a little confused by that, how it works in universe. Because aren't they right? Like, if you're the cushy guards, now well trained, not cushy, like highly disciplined, well trained guards protecting the head of state and the legislature and in the capital, in the very clean, polished capital, and on their consular trips and their journeys, they're also in the Siege of Mandalore, the ones that escort Maul in his box on the ship there. Wouldn't that be a different unit than these elite shock troopers? Maybe they figure they're just disciplined and elite, so they'll be also good to be rotated out into the field. Maybe that's what it is.
I have an answer to this, actually.
Okay, go ahead. What do you think?
There honestly are real life dictatorships where the elite presidential guard or the Republican guard, you're something, historian like I am, that are also shock troopers.
Okay.
I mean that's the SS. That's it. They're Hitler's bodyguards, and they're his elite shock troopers as well. There certainly are like certain battalions that personally protect the fur, but they are also used as shock troopers to really crack down on dissidents and internal rebellion. So I don't think we'd say no. There are lots of examples. I mean, there are examples of elite battalion divisions that are also shock troopers as well. So that is historically true.
All right. I mean, I guess kind of where I was starting to get to. That makes sense. It does make sense. I mean, if it's the same unit just having two different functions, and especially to rotate them out into the field to get more field experience, more experience in the wider galaxy. I mean, is that a sign? What does a democracy need for shock troopers? I mean, I guess there are elite troopers, elite units, in the Canadian Army, right? So there's that. But are they shock troopers? I don't quite know what shock troopers do. I figured they, front line, lead the siege, different things. But yeah, okay, makes sense that they'd have both, so they won't get too satisfied with their cushy capital job. I don't know if that makes any sense historically, Joel, but there you go.
It can be both.
It's
complicated.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll get a good Wikipedia. I should see if the Wikipedia article says anything about the distinction, about the relationship. I don't know. It probably just tells the story of, especially with Commander Fox and them. So, uh, yeah. Anyway, fun times, fun little nerdy discussion, which I don't usually get into, but why not indulge in that for a little bit. Anyway, moving right along. Uh, you know, move on to something. So I'm checking my notes here. I think it looks like there's a Disney Plus series coming out. What's it called? I'm trying to see here. It's called Skeleton Crew. Skeleton Crew, really? Huh?
Spooky, scary skeletons.
It's about Halloween or something. What's? I mean, anyway, there was a trailer on a Friday. my ranting about Lucasfilm marketing. Well, I'll get to it anyway. But we got it on the screen. There was a Skeleton Crew trailer. Of course, series begins December 3rd. So kicks off 2 episodes, and we got another trailer. Again, I only managed to see it once. It was on Friday. Again, I'll get into that in a little bit.
I saw Money Tank on Friday. I don't know what you're talking about.
I only saw it once. I was working. I was busy. What do you want? What did you think of the Skeleton Crew trailer?
Oh, I loved it. It was lots of fun. I think it was better than the first one. Really gave me the vibe and the tone of what this show was really going for. Just kind of a really fun venture. Very got that 80s biker kids vibe. Yeah. It's I'm going to be very interested. It seems like we're going to explore a very different side of the galaxy. I love the Huttese rock, which I think works for this particular type of project that's going for. Really sets the tone and kind of, I guess, even your expectations a little like, this is going to be fun. This is going to be fun. It's not going to be so super self-serious. It's cute with the kids. Love Neil. All my friends are loving Neil. Little elephant kid.
Neil or Neek?
It's Neil. Neil.
Okay.
I'm curious, like what the treasure is. Curious about that suburban planet, because that planet looks sus. Like, what's with the robots looking at everybody, like monitoring it, like what's going on there? And yeah, I'm excited for it. I mean, it's kind of cool just kind of go into a Star Wars. Like, I don't know. I don't have any expectation outside of just having some fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my thing.
Yeah, I mean, as a trailer, yeah, it was fun. And really interested in the parents of these kids and how they're worried. Again, this is only 5 years after the Empire, 6-7 years after the Empire.
It's Mandoverse time, so
yeah, it's Mandoverse. So yeah, that suburban planet. I mean, suburbs are this kind of panopticon to get in your box. They symbolize that kind of conformity that we see with Andor with Coruscant, for example. And so, yeah, this different vibe, suburban vibe. Still curious about this Jedi character. What he's
if he is a Jedi character, I'm actually not sure.
Or curious about what the place of the Jedi are in this, because again, we haven't seen much of it except for Ahsoka. We saw a bit of Luke and Grogu, but it hasn't been the focus of the story, is what I mean, except for Ahsoka. And so, to see this get in this part of the lore, this part of the world. So yeah, it's gonna be fun. Again, they released it on a Friday. Knowing what little bit I know about the industry, well, I know not more than a little bit. If you release something on a Friday, you're like, oh, people, I guess I gotta write something, turn something in on a Friday. Then, not that people are and grumpy about their jobs necessarily, but if you want to kind of stick something a bit in the corner, that's when you release something. You say, we don't care about too much publicity about this. We, some folks will say they'll do their jobs. That's fine, but they're tired. They just want to go enjoy the weekend, and so not having a few days to really generate a lot of buzz about it in the workplace and on their channels, and even on Lucasfilm's own channel. And so, I mean, that's the classic move, right? Again, if you want to you want to bury something, just release it on a Friday afternoon. And so this really is confirmation. It's not that, again, the trailer was good. It was as up to par as anything else, but it's confirmation to me that Lucasfilm and probably Disney as a whole not putting much stock in Disney Plus anymore and streaming anymore. It is not profitable, which makes sense. I mean, they're just raising the price on me, but and I totally don't share my password with my parents and my brother or whoever else, right? So they're not gaining those dollars that we would get going to a theater. Again, I get the economics. It's unfortunate from an artistic side because the artistic possibilities of these streaming shows we've seen firsthand repeatedly. Even in Star Wars with Ahsoka and with Mando season 2, and so in Andor, uh, and so there, and of course Marvel. And another reason they waited for Agatha to be done, which I get, but even Marvel might be stepping back a little bit. So
We're getting two
yeah,
next year for Marvel shows.
yeah, you're getting
Daredevil,
Agatha, beginning Daredevil. Which, I
I
mean,
think.
they released that trailer at New York Comic Con in a surprise panel. That was kind of fun. I wasn't at the panel, but I heard about it. Yeah, again, just clearly we'll see what changes when Mandalorian and Grogu. I mean, we're hearing more about the Rey film than about Skeleton Crew, from what at least I am, right? Rey film that,
I've heard a lot about Skeleton Crew because there's a lot of interviews going on there.
okay, fine, but there's also Daisy Ridley is in the press, so that's got to tell you something about where they're focusing their efforts. So
Oh, oh
yeah,
yeah, but I mean, like, I think I've been saying it for like the last couple of years. It's like,
that's true.
oh yeah, streaming era is over. Like,
Hmm.
kind of. I don't want to get like I don't want to like reiterate the things because we always talk about this, but like
Right.
I kind of have a new kind of conspiracy theory. I hate saying that, but I'm gonna be honest with you. I kind of feel like Acolyte was doomed from the start to not finish. I really do. I feel like Acolyte and/or Skeleton Crew, they're just like it's they're products of a different time.
Yeah.
The best like the kind of the most interesting way to describe it, like to parallel it with something else. So not as extreme because this franchise really went downhill. Is it's like when DC released Aquaman and the Flash. They just kind of want to make whatever little money they can make out of it, but deep down in their little hearts,
Mhm.
they know they're just waiting for James Gunn to get ready with Superman and
Yeah.
start up the good stuff.
Biding
Uh,
time and finishing off stories.
I mean, better than just scrapping them. I'm looking at you, Batgirl. What happened to Batgirl? That sucked.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
it's like Andor.
Well, they scrapped Acolyte season 2.
Well, that I mean, they never made
Scrapped.
Acolyte, but they didn't make Acolyte season 2.
Yeah.
They made Batgirl. It was done. It was ready to
Oh,
release.
really? Fair. Okay.
Yeah, like that. That's why it's like it'd be like if Acolyte 1 was already done, it's like now we're gonna scrap it because we're moving on. Like
Right.
that would have been worse. But it's
Yeah.
like, but yeah, it's like Andor, Skeleton Crew. They're kind of like these are kind of the things we have. We'll get
Mhm.
them out there.
Well,
And
Andor
I,
season 2 and Skeleton Crew, and then Ahsoka season 2.
right. See, Skeleton Ahsoka season 2 is a little bit in a different situation because that's
Mm.
more of the post change up and that's more connected to the Mandoverse. So that's kind of you have to treat that as almost its own thing.
Right. It's
Um,
post. Yeah.
Compared to Andor and Acolyte and Skeleton Crew, which are like these are kind of the remnants of the streaming golden
Well, Skeleton
rush.
Crew is still part of Mandoverse too. So,
That's true. It's a bit more complex, but yeah, they're
but it
kind of
is
like
still, your point remains. It's still
yeah,
a bridge, just biding time for these movies to come out.
right. And then
Yeah.
and actually, one more thing,
Mhm.
Mangold in an interview said he's done or almost done with a movie he's making about a biography of some dude.
Mhm.
And then after that, he's gonna just start working on Dawn of the Jedi, and that's his
Yeah.
priority. So even that's getting worked on.
Mhm.
I mean, it's not shooting, but he's getting worked on. So, you
Sure.
know, that's even cooking up. That's starting to cook up too. So yeah, I mean, I think we're all kind of going in Skeleton Crew. Like It'll be fun, but I don't think any of us are expecting it to kind of usher in the new era.
No, it's gonna like be a little bit. Again, that's what I'm curious about this. The Jedi influence and Jedi presence is it's gonna maybe add that flavor a little bit. Hopefully,
I'm hoping
um,
for Zim the Despot reference because that skull.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I was into that, but yeah, that'll be interesting. Um, yeah, what was I gonna say there? I forget what I was gonna say. That's okay.
what you think about the what are your thoughts about the series itself outside of all the behind the scenes
Well,
stuff?
again, yeah, like it's like you're saying, it's gonna be. I mean, well, it's gonna bring. I mean, that's interesting. Gonna bring younger audiences. It's gonna
Yeah.
appeal to which they don't have the appeal in live action yet. I mean, there's Grogu. Um, they can Jason they can relate to a little bit, but yeah, this is gonna be more of a kids show, not in a bad sense, but it's gonna probably have could have wider viewership in that way. Could be the first like TikTok show or even younger in live action.
I
So
don't know. I get more '80s kids, which is
sure,
kids swearing and smoking, and yeah, those '80s kids movies were dark and creepy. Watch the Goonies. Watch Goonies.
yeah, I guess to describe it as Goonies. I haven't seen Goonies. I need to see Goonies. Um, well, this is what I'm gonna say because I'm mainly thinking about the behind the scenes stuff. Here's my hot take. What if this will be the ultimate death knell? What if they decide let's release the next animated show, not on Disney Plus, but on ABC or
I
something
mean,
or
I might
whatever.
actually get more viewers, quite honestly. But
Yeah.
um, I'm going to say that probably wouldn't
No,
happen.
it's a wild card. I'm just saying, but I think it's not conceivable, frankly.
I mean, I think it'd be cool if these shows they were like they put it on the cable. At least
Yeah,
they're coming on DVD, so that's nice.
that's true. They got the stillbacks, so
I just asked for Andor for my Christmas list so I can have
nice.
a
Yeah.
official physical media just in case.
And again, we know Andor season 2 is safe.
Oh
Ahsoka
yes,
2 is safe. Um,
and that's it.
that's pretty much yeah. Is there anything else? Any Skeleton Crew?
Nah, Skeleton Crew
Yeah,
has kind of been coded as a one and done thing.
yeah, Skeleton Crew 1. Yeah,
Uh,
that's it. It won't. I mean, maybe a Mando 4.
I think that's the movie.
Sure, but after the movie.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. It really depends. Who
Yeah,
knows?
probably not. But yeah.
We shall
So
see.
it'll be interesting. We haven't had a movie come out in our run.
I know that'd be fun.
Like you guys, Joe, we're coming up on 3 years. Believe it or not,
I
we
know,
we
and
haven't
we've
had a
never done a review of a movie.
we haven't had a presidential election. We haven't done a movie, so that'll be interesting. We won't ignore the movies. We'll do the movies.
We'll have a special episode.
They'll be canon. We'll keep our eye on them.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, that's yeah. Maybe we won't we won't give this show the acolyte treatment. We'll give it the like eyes on screen first segment. Who will be giving it the acolyte treatment is the flagship. So check that out Thursday. Definitely talking about this trailer Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, right here on the Underworld channel. So yeah, and then they'll I'm guessing do the reviews if you're looking for weekly full on reviews of this show. I mean again, this is going to give us stuff to talk about. We might dedicate full ups. We would dedicate a full season look back for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and again, I'm not trying to say I'm not going without trying to like have low expectations because that's not right. I think the show might surprise us. I think it might be. I would not
Mhm.
be. I don't know. It's like I want to think that the show might have more than that. Even the trailer itself is
Yeah.
keeping from us. So I definitely. I think anybody who's like writing it off, even though I do think it won't be as connected to the mainline Mando
Mhm.
story. Like I think you're gonna miss out. I think
Yeah.
it'll be. I'll have some of that good Star Wars greatness. And I
Yeah,
like
it
John
looks good.
Watts. I like John.
Yeah.
I like his
Oh yeah.
style.
Yeah, John Watts, fantastic. It looks good.
Yeah.
Looks good. So, but yeah, end of an era coming up. Anyways, we got to move on. our main topic. I want to segue a little bit. I had one more this week in Star Wars.
Oh, okay.
Sort of. On whenever it was Thursday or Friday, when it's a film called The Apprentice. There were no Padawan raids in it, but there was a very much. It very much is a Palpatine Plagueis film in a lot of ways. These similarities there in terms of so it's the biopic of a certain Donald J. Trump when he's in the 80s and 90s when he's starting out and hitting big, and he comes under the tutelage of Roy Cohn, who is this incredibly powerful, savvy, dirty as all get out, every trick in the book lawyer, who really takes him under his wing and teaches him everything he needs to know. And spoiler alert, Donald effectively kills him in his sleep. In a way, it was very much oddly enough uncanny. I don't think George was thinking about Donald Trump when he was talking about Palpatine's rise, but now we all are. Of course, for reasons we'll maybe at least implicitly get into here. But yeah, it was very much a be careful. I mean, that's kind of the tragedy of Darth Plagueis is you invest in someone who you think is the hope to carry on your vision of the future, and you expect him to pay you back in kind and reward you for investing in him, except that your vision of the future is an absolute dog eat dog, kill or be killed. You know, my truth is the only one that matters world, and laws and vote totals and just any kind of common decency or fairness. If that's what you're teaching this young impressionable man, that those don't matter, don't be surprised when, spoiler alert, you're about to die of AIDS and he doesn't give a rat's behind about you. uh, that's the world that Palpatine, that's the world that Plagueis bestows to Palpatine. That's the world that Roy Cohn bestows to Trump, and
So
that's the world we're
random.
trying tomorrow again. If anything, but tonight, if you hear one thing tonight, please vote. I'm going to say it: vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Vote to preserve American democracy from itself, and that's the brink. Yeah, so that's my segue. We're gonna talk about Star Wars, democracy in Star Wars, which I'll let you.
But I actually
take
want
it
to go
away.
back to Roy
Sure.
Cohn for a second because I actually, and I think I did. I read a play that involved him
Interesting.
because it was not the Apprentice the play version because that doesn't exist.
I mean, it's an original story, yeah.
It's a play in the 80s
Hmm.
about 80s stuff, but Roy Cohn and him having AIDS, I think, was like a subplot.
Yeah.
So I will later down the line. I'll look this up. But, I swear to God, he was in a play.
Interesting.
I just don't remember.
Doesn't surprise me.
Angels in America. That's what the play was called.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's one of the characters.
Heard of it.
Yeah.
And then again, I don't fully know how much it's based on fact. Probably the gist of it is probably a lot of the details are Sebastian Stan. Oh my word! Like that's what a performance. Get that guy in Star Wars.
Oh, Nixon Lane played Roy Cohn in Angels in America. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. So,
but
anyway,
there you go. There you go.
I've endorsed. I can't vote. I've endorsed a certain candidate, and I don't think that's controversial here.
Maybe it's. I'm kidding. Yeah. Okay. Banned on YouTube. We just blew the whole channel. Sorry, guys.
I think we'll be okay.
Okay. Okay. Democracy and Star Wars. So I had to think a lot about when I wanted to start this, and like think, what's a good quote to start with? Everyone wants to go. This is how liberty died with
Mm,
thunderous applause. But
mhm,
I didn't choose that quote. That was too easy. I didn't think that quote was pointed enough for what this discussion was going to be about. I know, shocker. It's ridiculous. So I chose this quote because I think, honestly, I think
mhm,
this quote means more. I think
mm,
this quote has more. Honestly, is more important. Um, and that is the quote from Attack of the Clones by the Queen of Naboo, who's not Padme, whose name escapes me. That's what she says. The day people stop believing democracy can work is the day we lose it. And I think that if there is anything that Star Wars tried to say on
mhm,
a very big scale, moral, preachy kind of way, is that democracy really only works if you think it can work. When you give up on it, then that's when bad things happen. Now, I do think also, but I do think that Star Wars isn't just about people just randomly giving up on democracy. I don't think people just randomly wake up and go, democracy sucks. Out of their mornings. Maybe I do. No, I'm kidding. There, I think
Palpatine loves democracy.
I know, right? He wakes up every day saying that. Um, um, I think Star Wars also says that there is something about when democracy really does stop to function, when corruption does start to become a problem, when laws are not passed in the greater good of society, that it starts to affect society, and what the undercurrents of the rot and mold of institutions and bureaucracies and whatnot just decay and decay and decay over time. That's when people
Mhm,
like a Palpatine can come in and really take advantage of the situation. I think that Star Wars, especially as of late, just says it's not just Palpatine. Even if Palpatine, I don't know, keeled over before Episode One, all of a sudden, just
yeah,
just keeled over a bit. I don't think that stops the rot of the Republic that we see in Phantom Menace with the Trade Federation and the corporate guilds and commerce people. And would the Republic still have become a galactic empire? I mean, I don't know, because Palpatine and the Sith were very particular. Um, but that rot was continuing, and there were others who were like still like maybe the Republic should be more authoritarian. You got your Tarkins and your the Twi'lek Senator and your
or Frita,
Lawrence,
yeah.
Free Todd. Yeah, I mean, yeah, Palpatine was kind of the charismatic guy to kind of bring all these people together as
Mhm,
as it happens. But even if we did, because in a historical sense, keeled over, um, you know, other people could come in eventually because the decay and rot still happens. Rome didn't fall because of one dude. It,
mhm,
it took many dudes and dudettes and peoples and wars and decisions that you didn't think were important then, and then like, oh shoot, coming back to haunt us 300 years later. Um, and I think that both democracy requires more than just voting. It requires a deeper participation,
mhm,
and really, getting involved in it. Um, and Star Wars doesn't have time to deal with all of that, especially the prequels. 3 movies, deal with so much. But
mhm,
that is, I think, kind of the gist of it as well. It's a combination of like, okay, something in the Republic is not working, and that's causing the people to stop believing, and
mhm,
that's just going to make things worse. And it's just this kind of cycle, which it's like, well, how do we get out of it? It's like what do you do? Like, and then it's a long, prolonged rot, um, that takes centuries to kind of reach a
mhm.
pinnacle point. But yeah, that's my opening salvo.
Yeah, I mean, when life is rough, when things seem off, when something seems wrong, you wanna change. When, after World War One, the Treaty of Versailles, and the rampant unemployment and inequality between the, this aristocracy holding on, and the working class in this Weimar Republic that did collapse. Um, you want to change. You want something new. You want something different. You want to make Germany great again. And you harken back. You have people who say, "Oh, remember when things were this way? Uh, why can't they be like that again?" All that to say, it
Bring
isn't that they
back the
want to go
Kaiser.
back; is that they want to go elsewhere, and that's kind of the mindset of it. And so, yeah, along comes a charismatic leader who says, "This thing you feel, this fear you have of change, I'm going to put a stop to it. I'm going to say no." Well, oddly enough, for you have change, for you have of instability, for you have of um, no longer or not having the advantage anymore. Um, I'm going to put a stop to it. I'm going to say the comforting thing. It's this paradox. I'm saying, on the one hand, the thing that needs to change is change itself in this mindset. And so they say, oh yeah, Weimar Republic, or um, in a lot of parts, liberal progressive politics is this rot that this is the belief, this is the feeling. I think uh, participatory politics is this rot that is at once excluding me, but it's also dragging the nation into decline and decay. Another movie I saw was Conclave, where I'm going to write something on that for my day job. But uh, there's a cardinal who, well, the
Is
cardinals.
that the German cult from Chile one?
Sorry, which?
Oh no, I'm sorry.
The
I'm thinking of a different movie. Conclave.
Conclave, as in the papal election movie that came out last week. Um, there's one cardinal who's all every reason, everything about everything. The reason things are bad is because we've made things more inclusive and participatory, and so it erodes a belief in the good of active participatory politics. Let me tell you what else erodes belief in active participatory politics: the consolidation of power, consolidation of interests. Usually, in our day and age, through major corporations. Although, when I was in rural Alberta, a lot of people like to blame the government in Edmonton, the social democratic government in the provincial capital, for all their problems that were probably the fault of the oil companies in Calgary, quite frankly, um, by and large. But uh, the yeah, my point being, yeah, well, the thing that erodes it is lack of structures of participation, lack of avenues for participation, lack of efficacy, and it is this twin cycle, chicken and egg, where you know if you can choose to believe your voice matters, and it does, but also the system itself can be more or less responsive, therefore encouraging that belief or not. Now, that's the thing about tomorrow. That's the thing about the mail-in ballots. That's the thing. And again, your point is it's more than just voting, but when voter turnout is so low, voting can be a start. I'll say this: voting can be a start,
Yeah, like
and
in my opinion, voting is like the bare minimum.
it is the bare minimum. It's true. Um, and then donating to a party, campaigning for a party, and even
Joining a party.
joining a party. But even party politics isn't the whole thing, right? There are other forms of participation. There are other forms of involvement in common life, in public life. I consider my church involvement to be a political thing, in that it's a common public thing in an institution in the community. Hopefully, doing our best to do good and to be hopeful and meaningful. Join, the neighborhood. There's a neighborhood Facebook group, and being part of that and community organizations. Um, all that to say, you know, things that can encourage our belief in democracy. I will say, on just a bit of a tangent though, the one thing I did notice in smaller towns is that they have the community organizations down pat. We've actually kind of lost some of that in the big cities. Lost the sense of uh, joining an organization or having things to do. We're regaining that. We're picking that up again, but we had that in cities. That's not me wanting to harken back to a bygone era, saying, "Oh, here's this good thing that's happening. Maybe we should learn from that too." Interestingly enough, rural voter turnout is probably pretty darn high because there's that investment in it. And so investment even in municipal politics to some extent too is probably greater. I don't know about the numbers, but all that to say, yeah, that's really true. That the great quote that you picked out from Attack of the Clones from Queen Jamila.
That's
We have to believe it. We have to actually have this public imagination that we have responsibility for our communities and for our countries and
that
for our civic life.
that segues really well into the next kind of point I have here in my notes. So I see actually talking about Star Wars and morality, but I'm gonna go down to the bottom here. Um, but so in terms of like what do we do to preserve it,
Mm-hmm.
Star Wars isn't or has never kind of, nor do I think it really wants to be, kind of the what kind of institutions should the galaxy have in terms of galactic government, right? Like, it's like, hey, we should have like the bicameral legislation,
Mm-hmm.
executive, ignored by popular vote, um, and whatnot. And it doesn't really do that. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I love a organization chart of the New Republic, but I don't think we're gonna get that. But Star Wars has done over the last, especially recently, really honestly, gonna be honest, it's the Disney era. And maybe this would have happened regardless because of just culture. But I just think it may be just a little bit
Mm-hmm.
more potent because of the reboot. Star Wars focuses on that kind of local idea of what I call mutual aid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we don't see like senators getting voted or stuff like that, but what we do see quite a lot of, and kind of what Star Wars has been going for the last few years, is very much, you know, in the dark times, in the light times, in the times of old, just local people helping each other out. I mean, what is Rebels' whole thing by the end? It's the locals of Lothal and their
Mm-hmm.
friends helping to get this one planet out of the Empire. Communally kicking the Empire out of the
Mm-hmm.
system, and space whales taking Thrawn Ezra to another galaxy far, far away.
Mm-hmm.
Resistance, Star Wars Resistance, really good show. Recommend. We should rewatch. That whole show is about the Colossus and trying to make that community work together and have strong ties eventually to take on the First Order. And in the final battle, it's like it's the community that really does the deed. They come
Mm-hmm.
together and they kick out the First Order. You see this a bit in Episode 9 in both drafts, that the idea always was going to be it was just sort of a local galactic people's fleet of just everyone just
Mm-hmm.
kind of coming together. And, in Episode 9, Collinberg coming on Coruscant, and then in Episode 9, we got on Exegol to take on Palpatine one last time. And Mandalorian, funny enough, that's what I love about the planet Navarro. Navarro is like, hey, Din's gonna
Mm-hmm.
help out this planet, get rid of the Empire, kick out the Empire. There goes the criminals. Grief Karga, rest in peace, Carl Weathers. I miss
Yeah.
Carl Weathers.
Yeah.
And Cara Dune, played by she who will not be named. They like, okay, you know what? Let's help out this community. Let's get it back on its feet. And we see in every season of The Mandalorian, just Navarro gets better and nicer. It's like the bar turns into a school. Grief Car gets looking fancier. He's helping out the locals, and it's like they're living a better life and they're helping their community, and then maybe even later they could be a big transit hub for the region. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it really is a It has to be from the bottom up. I mean, I will say that one person winning this election will make things a lot easier than the other for sure. But it kind of, I don't want to say, well, yeah, no, I will say that. Don't hear my hot take. It kind of won't matter if the bottom up doesn't happen, right? You can put Mon Mothma in charge of the galaxy, but if the galaxy just thinks democracy sucks and it's like, we like that Palpatine guy, and even the governors of the presidents of the planets that of the local areas are like, we like that Palpatine guy, we want him back. It's like, well, then what power does Mon Mothma have? Even if you got a fancy defense fleet. So, I think Star Wars over the recent years has sort of really leaned into this idea of, it is the local, it has to be start from the bottom up
Yeah.
to make any sort of difference. And that's my second self.
Yeah, I mean, definitely with the Rey film, that's what I'm curious about, is where does that start? What does she do?
15 years later.
And that's not going to be necessarily explicitly political, but it's going to have an impact. It's going to have something to do with it. Now that the galaxy is so fragmented, and we don't know what Poe is going to end up doing. He might be
Chancellor Poe.
Well, he might be trying to rebuild something. But what I will say, not to disagree with you, but to maybe nuance it. I think what Star Wars likes to really moves towards is the movement from the local, from the grassroots to the global political whatever, galactic, right? What we see in Southern Ontario, Z.K. Johnson, we see Padme starting out in her which of her Padme novels. We see her starting out as volunteering, or that's even Darth Plagueis. In the Darth Plagueis novel, James Lucien.
Yeah.
Padme, she's helping out people with relief efforts. We see
the Attack of the Clones lead scenes too.
Those lead scenes, how that translates into her willingness as a senator, ultimately as queen and then senator, to really pursue the common good and do her best to preserve democracy on a planetary, a sectoral, and a galactic stage. That she carries that values. It's a training in values that can actually burgeon into a great leader. Leia, similar story. Leia, Prince of Alderaan. She's trying to help this planet. She missteps. She makes the mistake, learns a hard lesson. Of course, that carries her into saying, "Yeah, I want to look that. I know you guys are keeping this whole Rebel Alliance thing from me, but let me in, put me in here. This is the only chance we're doing good here. Now it's violent, which is another complication, but that's the story we have with Star Wars. Is Luke starting being bored with me on the farm? He's thrust into this circumstance.
No, I agree with that. I mean, that's
just to say to your point, then, yeah, you're absolutely right. If Kamala Harris wins tomorrow, there's still that groundswell of fear and anger and distrust of science, distrust of reason, distrust of liberal politics, that of democracy, really, that has made this election so darn close, when 10 years ago it would have been a wash, right? So
I mean,
you still got to deal with, again, the point being, still have to not just deal with communities. So at New York Comic Con, this is Star Trek example, but Todd Stashwick, Picard actor, Captain Shaw, his character actually has this conversion. He goes from basically dead naming a character to actually seeing her as she is. And I asked him, what can what can that say to our world today, especially with the election coming up? And he ended up importantly saying, love is love, and people are people, and you are who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the people who struggle with seeing other people as they are, they have a story, they have a suffering story or a privileged story, a blind spot, reason they're holding on so strongly. And so that we're going to have to deal with those of us. This is how part of how I understand privilege. The those of us who may not be so impinged by someone who's spewing homophobia or racism or misogyny. Yes, I'm impinged. I'm not saying I'm not, but if it's a little easier for me to brush it off and actually talk to the person, having the responsibility to do that and say, why do you think this? Why do you feel this way? So that that is where the conversion can take place. And it's even on this personal level. You know, the feminist movement was always right. Personal is political. We're gonna have to start having these conversations insofar as we can on this personal level. Maybe some folks, I'm sure a lot of folks won't be able to have a conversation. I don't know how possible these conversations are, but your point being that change also has to happen from the ground up too, uh, regardless of who wins tomorrow.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, if you know who wins, it's like, well, going to be very much the states versus the federal here. I live in California. So
That's true too. That's another aspect of it, right?
But you know, I'm thinking about this, and like, you know, I'll think back to 2016 for a hot second, and I think kind of the example of really people dropping the ball on this. You know, I'm gonna say it. I'll say it. Probably controversial among. No, I have more lefty friends who would agree with this 100%. The Obama thing, right? You know, Obama comes in. You know, it's like, I guess we can. You know, woo! You know, we're all happy, and then we all kind of go home. And then what happens? 2010, wipeout. Republicans sweep everything. They sweep a lot of local elections too. Take over a bunch of states, especially a bunch of swing states too. And then Obama wins again because people like Obama, but in terms of everything else, it's like people just kind of ignore it. And then again, kind of another big win for Republicans locally as well. Lock it in, and then 2016 happens. So you kind of already see, I think as much as you want to kind of maybe be shocked, it's like, I don't know, if you look at the warning signs on the local level, if the local affects the national, well, look what happened in 2016 after two kind of big red elections, with the exception of 2012, because of Obama's personal charisma there.
Yeah.
But, on the flip side, you have 2018. That was a good local year. 2022 was actually surprising, another good local year too. Of course,
for Democrats.
Yeah, for Dems. And just for progressive stuff in general. I mean, obviously, we don't know what will happen tomorrow, but again, the local affects the national here, and go back to Star Wars. Although it's not about voting, it's about rebellion, armed insurrection.
It's a bit about voting too. I mean, the prequels are about voting.
That's true. But actually, when you use the original trilogy here as sort of the example, I think it's easy to think of the Rebel Alliance as like, oh, Mon Mothma, Bail, and Akbar, they got together. It's like, let's form this cool army. But no, that's not actually what's happened. It's like the rebellion was already starting the day the Empire declared. It's just these little scattered cells all over the place. And then, sure, it took 20 years, but like there were more cells, and those cells contacted those cells, and they contacted those cells. And then, Mon Mothma does her thing, and then, Lucen is doing his thing in Andor, connecting all the cells together, trying to get all together. It's like, hey, we got to work together here. And then, obviously, by the time of New Hope, it's like that's when a bunch of those cells all kind of organize together and, blow up the Death Star and have big galactic repercussions twice. So again, it started local, it started planetary. So I think that's another thing too. And also it's a great example of Mandoverse for a second. Again, we've seen the flip side of local, where the New Republic's in charge, but when a New Republic shipyard is run by the CEO with a Palpatine statue in his backyard, it goes like, I'm just like it for collecting. I'm just doing it for the money.
Yeah.
That's a problem. Like, even if the map of New Republic territory is pretty big, if all those planets have
It's
very
Corellia. It's a major hub.
if it has a very imperial sympathetic president or governor or whatever the
Hmm.
equivalent is,
Hmm.
that's going to have repercussions down the line as well, no matter if Mon Mothma's in charge or not. It's almost like she can be in charge, but she has hollow power, and that's very much true for a presidency as well.
Hmm.
Um, so I think that's why I think Star Wars, it has been kind of, as of the last few years, really focusing on, hey, these local trimmers can have galactic repercussions.
Yeah.
It's kind of why I think they wanted to do it right. I mean, that's kind of what I think the people fleet for Rise of Skywalker is. It's that
Hmm.
galactic repercussions, even if it's maybe not seeded as well. But yeah, it's there. I think
Yeah.
it is.
And I mean, even with Andor, you know, the
Oh yeah,
the daughters of Ferrix, everything happening in Ferrix, right?
not the podcast, the actual Ferrix people.
Yeah, everything happening in Ferrix. The as this attempted uprising against the Empire, and my point being, well, I'll be curious. Again, that's at the very least, that's where Cassian really links up. Um, curious to see if season two carries that forward, and that's part of what pushes him into the Rebel Alliance. It's kind of at least having that memory there. Um, with his mother being this great figure in this uprising,
Community leader too.
community leader. Um, and yeah, you see with Corellia and the vested interests there. I mean, another thing. That's the thing. These movements, we have to take these popular movements seriously,
Mhm.
both as things that we can connect with and join up. Because yeah, it is. You're talking about the say senators and planetary governments. So you have Congress and you have states. That yeah, the down ticket, uh,
Mayors,
mayors and municipalities,
council.
but the down ticket ballot is very important. Again, for what gets done. You're talking about the time change. That's something Congress has to deal with, right? Sure, a president can do something with that, but that's to get through Congress. Um, that, but also popular movements, and I go back. I chart the rise of where we are now with Trump back to when John McCain was he had been such a moderate, such a statesman, someone who was somewhat reasonable, could disagree with his policies. His policies are terrible and violent. At least the way he did politics was reasonable. Yet during his campaign in 2008, he he swung right. He appealed to this burgeoning Tea Party and started to give them a platform that was burgeoning. This opposition to uh, everything that Obama was supposedly standing for, and sharing the table and bringing in universal health care. What a thought! And um, McCain started to appeal to them. Yes, he lost, but and I think who was I talking with? Maybe talking with Dom or someone else about how he then went back to the Senate, or I think it was talking with my friend from Arizona. Went back to the Senate and uh, was again more reasonable as a politician, as a bipartisan leader, but the damage was done, and yeah, it's something we also need to watch out for. I mean,
I
we'll have
mean,
to watch out for, see what Trump says about the vote tally. We're gonna have another January 6th on our hands potentially. That hopefully people are prepared for, or prepared for this time. Yeah,
at least we don't. At least he's not actually in the White House. So if that actually happens, at least then.
true.
But I mean, I could probably say like, oh, let's go back to Reagan or even further. But
Yeah, that's true.
I
Yeah,
mean,
true.
but like
I mean,
that's.
more well, and yeah, the moral majority, Jerry Falwell, and goes all the way back there too.
I
But
mean, I'd probably go back even further, but it's like we
sure.
don't have time to go over all the history of this, but it's a
Mhm.
long one. but yeah, what was I saying? Oh yeah, you brought up movements. That is always something that I think a lot of people, um, especially online, kind of who want things done quick, don't get. It's like, again, it's
Hmm.
the we kind of want, we want to do the national first. That's why,
It's
like
sexy. It's cool.
it's cool, and it's like
I used to think that way too.
it's like, people, even fellow leftists were like, even if you did get Bernie in the White House, which probably would have, which would have been probably still a better timeline. Um,
Hmm.
you know, what local movement power does he have? What base does he have?
Right.
Especially if like he is going to be the anti-establishment person, who obviously, unlike Trump, will probably is way more fair and actually like in good faith about it for
Hmm.
sure. Like when he's talking about the establishment, he's very true about that. He was.
He's not in their pocket the way Trump is.
Right. Just not lying. I wasn't lying, but it's like, what he doesn't have a labor movement to back him up and to help him get through big legislation. He doesn't
Hmm.
have, doesn't have allies in local areas.
Hmm.
He wouldn't have. God help him about the Supreme Court, but that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like, you know, these movements for more progressive societies or even revolutionary ones, quite frankly, if you want to even go that far, it's not let's just form the party, friends, and storm the
Hmm.
czar's palace. It's like, no, you gotta be local. It's gonna take decades. You might have to start as like just little individual cells, depending on what you're doing, of course.
Hmm.
And it will take a lot of time. You're gonna have to make coalitions with people. You're gonna have to like, weird will have to kind of come up naturally. Like civil rights movement did not start with just like, hey, it's Martin Luther King. He's looking all cool now.
Right.
It's like, that took years of years. It's like all these little movements and people and organizations, and it's like taking decades and lots of luck and chance to boil and boil and boil up until finally then you got like the big national movements and stuff.
Yeah.
And that's another thing about, I guess, democracy. And movements are democratic. It's like,
Well, that's my point. They're
that
very,
it's
or can
very
be.
sorry, I gotta fly. It's very unsexy and it's very long and boring and it drags on you, and quite frankly,
Hmm.
you might never live to see any of the work you've done have any effect at all in your
Mm.
lifetime. You might not make it to the other side. Um, it's true. I mean,
Hmm.
even the great revolutions, it's like, yeah, the people who started them probably, for the most part, died before and it's like the people are just picking up the legacy. So,
Right.
I mean, that's a little bit like the Saw. Like he was one of the OG rebels, and he died before
Hmm.
he could see anything
Sure.
really come to fruition. So there's that. So
Yeah.
that's another thing I think Star Wars tries to teach. Like it's a long I mean, not boring because Star Wars needs to be actiony, but like it's a
Yeah.
long process and it can take decades, and you can go backwards.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely not linear.
Oh yeah.
Um, there's that. But yeah, thinking about Obama in Chicago. Um, person I think now is AOC. Alexandria Ocasio Cortez, and you know, she's she's in Congress. She's representing Queens and Bronx. She has now global, national, global attention because she's so strong and charismatic and so relatable. But she got her start. She was uh, serving in a restaurant and then organizing in the community and meeting their needs. I mean, that local movement. That she's now it's translated into representing her district, having again influence in Congress. It is a matter of time before she runs for statewide or national office. That's pretty clear. Um, but it'll require, like with the Obama campaign, required him to take his experience as an organizer and apply it to the campaign. Something oddly and interesting, Hillary Clinton didn't have really. I mean,
There were a lot of problems with Clinton.
yeah, and one of the big things, I mean, the major reason she lost in 2016 was because she ignored the local in Michigan and Pennsylvania and the Rust Belt in Ohio. You know,
Mhm.
um, she ignored the folks in Ferrix when she could have gone to the Ferrixes of America, or Trump went to the Ferrixes of America and said, "I'm going to fix your problems. Just got to kick out all the people who don't look like you." You know, and of course, end up being the cause of those problems even more. But that's you know that's the point. Yeah, great point about um, being a part of something that you don't live to see the end of. I guess two thoughts there. Two thoughts there is we talked about.
Depressing. No. So,
Well, it could all depressing, or it could be the opposite. It could be hopeful and encouraging.
mhm.
Um, for two reasons. Again, we talked about half an hour ago. The thing democracy needs is for people to believe in it. That's the thing that these movements do. They give something concrete for people to do, people to see, people to actually act on, possibly small changes, small victories at the local level, experience with failure, experience with success. They able to say, oh, this is actually something I see myself doing, I see people around me doing. We together can actually uh, take part in this, and then we can also vote, and we can also engage in party politics if we need to. But fosters that belief, even if that belief can be enough to carry things long term to change the political culture. And that is the legacy of Padme. That is the legacy of Mon Mothma. Um, Mon Mothma is the one who does it, is able to see it. Padme is not. Maybe, I mean, Mon Mothma. That's the thing. That's the thing that Ray, again, this Ray film is curious about. Thing that Padme set in motion with just her general goodness, but also with the Rebel Alliance, um,
Bale didn't
rooting
live
it.
to see it. Bale,
Yeah, and Bale. Well, and Bale didn't live to see the end either.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
He exploded.
too soon.
I know.
um, although even his memory, right? This
Mhm.
this propaganda poster, thing. Also, this guy trying to convince Cara Dune to care about the wider world. Anyway, um, what was I saying? Um, you know, Padme taking steps to root out not just the rot of the burgeoning empire, but the rot in the republic, the anti-democratic consolidation of power in the republic that her and Mina Monteri, that partnership that in different circumstances would have been a boon for the whole galaxy. You know, that one way to look at this whole saga of the rise and fall of the empire and the rise and fall of the First Order, their fall, especially as a purging of that imperialism that uh, afflicted the galaxy, starting with certainly Lena So, at the in benevolent way. She was really trying to gather people together with the institution, sure, but the legacy of that is also I am the Republic, I am the Senate. Unintended consequence of we are all the Republic is I am the Senate. Anyway, Padme, Mon Mothma, and Bail, what they set in motion may only be seen in the Rey film. I mean, seen, yes, of that fleet that you mentioned in Rise of Skywalker, but in the aftermath, in what the galaxy actually looks like, what the lessons learned are. Um, it's a really fascinating story and struggle with Mon Mothma in the Aftermath trilogy. And we see that a little bit in Ahsoka, grappling with the legacy of a standing army and that the inherent imperial nature of a standing army, even though sometimes it might be necessary to go into action. Um, I don't think Senator Ziono is entirely wrong, but uh, yeah, they're there trying to, um, yeah, in a good way, build on what Padme had set up. And so, there's also a deeply spiritual theme here, and just I'm going to bring this up. Uh, 'cause it's also in November is a time in the church, and this is relevant, I promise. Where uh, just today I was reading about you know the saints who have gone before us, those who have died, not seeing the benefits of their lives. Um, that's the martyrs happens with martyrs. The effect that their lives, their teaching, their stories have on the world after they've died. Um, Now we do believe they can see and know them in this mystical way, in this weird mystical way, but they don't have a direct effect on it. Um, it's actually meant to be profoundly hopeful that just because you can't see the effect of something doesn't mean it isn't true. Just because you work and you work and you work and you campaign, or whatnot. The Again, that belief that you foster in the goodness of communal life, that itself is the result that will hopefully translate into wider systemic results for people overall. And so yeah, that's kind of the way, that's we see that in Star Wars, but we see also in the real world.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think, like like again, sort of like I think society crumbles not because one day a Palpatine figure says, I'm gonna give me emergency powers, and they're all like, okay, here you go.
Hmm.
It's always the small things. I think weirdly, I don't think the High Republic Book Initiative will go into this, but I think you see this more in what's the Jedi Council book called again?
Living force.
You see this in Living Force. You might see this more as the Phase 3 to Phantom Menace era gets filled in.
Mm,
Kind of just the slow crumblings of the communal
yeah.
society kind of, you know, degrade and go away as time moves on. I mean, that was kind of the whole point of that planet. Where it's like, you get rid of the church, although, I don't think it always has to be a church, where
Hmm.
it's like people can commune with one another. You get rid of schools, you get rid of parks, you get rid of social spaces.
Hmm.
You become more atomized and individualistic over time. And then senators themselves stop being less accountable and more corrupt and like taking paychecks from the big corporations, and then
Hmm.
they get deregulated, and then the cycle goes on and on and on and on until it crumbles and
Hmm.
falls. So it's very much that, and I think Star Wars on the whole has been going into that a little bit more um, as well. Let me check my notes
I mean, I
here.
just want to
Okay.
respond. That's again the point of individualism, right? Uh, yeah, you have this Jedi community. Well, one thing High Republic does do, it starts with "We are all the Republic." It has this very strong sense of the Jedi being a community, being a family. Um,
Young Jedi
yeah,
Adventure is very good with this one.
yeah, yeah. With that, these kids trying to come together. Um, you know, Lula leaves the family. Spoiler alert, but that's okay. She's joining another family. But what we have, especially even in Phase 2, we have these Pathfinder teams comprised of Jedi uh, and other folks. Uh, not non-Jedi, not Force sensitive folks. And they have to rely on each other. You have to be together, and uh, again, that does translate in the time of Phase 1 and Phase 3 into the sense, at least the challenge. And I love this moment where the challenge for Jedi to say we have to rely on everyone else around us. We have to come together. Um, there's a moment in The Fallen Star where Stellan and Elzar, they're half baked by the Nameless. But they're all, we got to figure this out on our own. We're Jedi. We got to figure this out. And Bell is all like, there's a breach in the station or something. And Charlie peeking. And Bell's all, no, there's a whole room of pilots and engineers and and other folks who are more than capable of helping out. Let's go. I'm going to go ask them for help. So he goes and asks them for help, and it ends up saving half the station. In fact, not saving half the people on the station. The station falls. Called Fallen Star. Everything about the Nameless. Everything about you know what they represent. The response that the Jedi have to have is to say, we have to send in Defense Coalition folks to deal with these guys. We have to depend on our friends who aren't as force sensitive. You have to develop that bond across these divisions in order to survive, in order to uphold the goodness of this republic community. And so, yeah, another thing democracy needs is a sense of a we. And that's the funny thing about the local versus the national and the kind of the rural and urban, that those strong community organizations, if they instill values of kindness and hospitality and welcome to all people, curiosity, learning, then yes, they can translate into a wider sense of we. If they foster values of defensiveness and protecting me and mine, and you know, my grandfather built this farm, and don't you dare government take tell me I can't drill as much oil from this as I want. You know, it fosters this animosity and divisiveness. To be fair, city folks need to learn how to be more sensitive. You know, I think I did a pretty good job coming into that context and saying I was working for the church at the time, saying I respect what you've built here. Um, teach me teach me about it. Let me learn. Teach me about your life, and um, you know, modeling that kind of, you know, not trying to toot my own horn too much, but modeling that kind of open curiosity that they did have, and yet it can go both ways. And so, um, yeah, again, that belief in a sense of a we in politics, what we're seeing, you know, now of course is a sense of a global we that we need to develop. What the Clone Wars really served to do was erode that too. That was one of the things Palpatine really wanted, was to um, exacerbate what was already a very strong core periphery division, very strong human non-human division that of course Legends does more of than canon, but still in canon, still there in canon, especially with Thrawn. You see that. Um, yeah, to say Palpatine coming in to say, I'm going to protect your interests against this Mune and Nemoidian and whoever else Outer Rim folks who want to share the love, spread the wealth, want attention. Who do these Outer Rim folks think they are, wanting attention and sharing the table? Of course, he's propping them up too because he's Palpatine, he's a Sith Lord causing this war. Yeah, that's what the rebellion ends up doing at the end of the day, fostering a sense of we, fostering a sense of wherever you come from, be it Alderaan or Tatooine, whatever species you are, we're coming together for a greater cause. And that is true. That is what we see at the end of Rise of Skywalker. Maybe it would be good if we saw more faces, but we see kind of ship designs and different things and had a different story to tell. But yeah, that sense of we, that again, in a fractured galaxy now, I think Poe especially, but maybe in Rey in her own way as a Jedi, can help foster.
Well, who knows what the galaxy will look like, quite frankly, in the movie. So, uh,
Yeah,
but
true. We
yeah,
don't know, but there's going to be some rebuilding to do. Is my point.
oh yeah, yeah, and I think Star Wars also doesn't take kind of the easy route of saying, "Oh, Senate's back, we're democracy now, all good."
Well, it does. That's the Aftermath trilogy and the Mandoverse.
Yeah,
You know, look what happens.
yeah, I mean, not to judge on other countries, of course, Mr. Westerner here. But there are lots of countries where, like unless you're like a full-on absolute monarchy, that's like where we just hold no bars, we don't care, we have money, we're an absolute monarchy, we're proud. Most countries in the world are republics, right? Most countries on paper are republics. They got presidents, a parliament.
I don't know about that,
No, most
but
countries are. They are legally republics. They got a president and a parliament.
I'll have to think about that. I will say
But
most
that doesn't
countries,
make them democracies.
no, well, most countries, um, their kind of main governance is some sort of legislature or a president.
Parliamentary republics. I mean, that's what they call them.
Yeah. Oddly enough, here's the thing. This is the thing I thought of. I think most true democracies are not republics. I could be wrong with this, but
Well, to
Western
be fair,
Europe,
republics and democracies aren't technically the same thing from a poli-sci perspective.
no, they aren't.
We're
But
technically a republic people in America, not a.
right, but I'm talking about in Canada, we're not a republic. We got a king. He's some bloke on the other side of the ocean.
You're a
He,
parliamentary system. But,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, I mean, but well,
So we function in a Republican way in the sense that we don't have, King Charles can't literally. He's actually not allowed to walk into the House of Commons.
But my point is,
Yeah.
that Star Wars, because it's Star Wars, wants to be overt. It's like and based off World War II, it's like
Yeah.
oh, it's the Führer figure, the Duce, the Emperor. Like they changed the system now. It's like on paper, it's like all power is concentrated in the new dictator. Where it's like modern day dictators, it's like no, they just kind of keep the term president. If the or it's like, and they have like elections every 7 years, and technically it's like on paper, it's like it all looks legit, but like societally speaking, though, it's like
well, that's kind of the point of those legislatures.
it's
I mean
like,
that Palpatine
Putin's
until sorry, go ahead.
Putin's the president, and Russia is technically a federal republic like America on paper, but like Putin's basically the czar. That's Russia for you.
I mean the Galactic Senate, it goes for another 20 years.
Right. Funny that Palpatine didn't, like just had to go extra with the whole Emperor thing. It's like just take away the term limits. Just run an election every 5 years. Like just like have a show election. That's what lots of dictators these days do.
Too complicated.
I know. There's actually kind of a bit of I remember reading the poli sci guy. Like he said that the only reason most of these dictators don't become monarchs is because of American hegemony over the world that makes republics look like the norm. It's like no, like if America was not the superpower it was, like probably lots of these guys would just make themselves just monarchs already. They're gonna hand power to their sons. So it's like it's like the president of Uganda, he's gonna hand power to his son. But it's like they gotta have an election. It's like gonna be, of course, a fake one, but like they're going through the motions still, even though it's like you don't really have to at this point. It's still kind of weird. Like on paper, you still have to, right?
I think part of that is because a lot of these places are post-colonial.
That's it.
And so they emerged democratically, or this revolution, and actually, that their authoritarian regime is propped up by the myth of we're the saviors from that colonial power, and so we can't go back to having a monarch, just like a colonial power. We have to have a president. Yeah, I do see what you mean for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. It's way more complicated than that with these other countries, and I don't want to get too much into it because I got very
not sure what this has to do with Star Wars, but
I mean, I think my point with Star Wars. I think my point with Star Wars is, dictatorship is not as overt looking as you might think it is, and there isn't always a clear Palpatine figure, declaring, the first galactic empire. That's just Palpatine being extra. Like, when you really think about it, when you you might be going on a little bit of a tangent, but this is something I've always thought about. When you really think about it, Palpatine did not have to become the emperor and declare the empire. He could have just kept the republic, just kept the chancellorship, but just like have a very authoritarian republic but he had to go extra. Like, nope, I'm the emperor now, and then
Mhm.
my heir, who's never going to exist, will take over. I mean, obviously that's Lucas playing into Rome.
Yeah.
Obviously, so it's the fiction of that, but it's like, modern day dictatorships don't do that often. It's like there hasn't
Mhm.
been old school like, oh, Hitler dissolved the presidency and the chancellorship. He is just now defer. Um,
Yeah.
but it's kind of like, I think that's just my point with Star Wars. It's like Star Wars. That's the fictional side of Star Wars coming in.
True.
But but let me go back to my notes to make
I mean, the
sure.
fiction. I mean, it's a space opera.
Oh yeah, exactly.
And that's
Yeah, and we love
getting back to, or going back to your point about how it isn't so concerned with the political science questions about
it. Oh yeah,
constitutions and federal systems and whatnot. Um, yeah, it's more about
the
these
morals.
wider questions of morality and community, because that's what a space opera is good for. Oddly enough, Star Trek isn't a space opera. It doesn't go into these questions as much either. But at least we know Paris is here and San Francisco's here. But that's a whole other tangent.
Right. Going through my notes, I feel like we almost covered everything I wanted to get at.
Hmm.
We kind of went over like what Star Wars is with the
Yeah.
making the judgments and whatnot. Live long and prosper, Polar Knights. Yep.
Yeah.
Um,
Speaking of the Federation.
but yeah. I do think that kind of just to kind of maybe get to the wrap up point here, that Star Wars, it's I think I think honestly more than Liberty died with Thunder's applause, it's the
Mhm.
day people stop believing democracy is the work day we lose is more the key aspect here of Star
Mhm.
Wars. And you know, it, it's not just about voting. It's like, what are you doing to just better society in general? How are you contributing to society,
Mhm.
right? It's like, in kind of what context, right? If you're in the more peaceful time, High Republic era, are you helping people like, with the big festival and farming the fruit? Or if you're in the dark times, are you, help doing little acts of rebellion to fight the empire in
Mhm.
your own small way that can have a ripple effect down the line? I
Yeah.
do think that is kind of Star Wars. I think you did put it right, Matthew. It's how the planetary local can become galactic.
Mhm.
Um, and I think those are always the fun things. I like seeing Star Wars planetary politics a lot, and I think it's interesting.
I mean, this whole darn thing gets sparked by a trade dispute on Naboo.
That's true. That's true. It's a small local issue that then becomes a very galactic issue
Yeah.
many years down the line.
So,
Uh,
yeah. So it's the peril and the opportunity of the local movements to better society and to actually do good for the galaxy, make it great, according to hopefully what for a good for great for everyone, not just for some people. There we go.
yeah.
Um,
Is there anything else, or did we cover it all?
I think we covered it again. To say what democracy needs to survive. Yeah, it needs people to believe in democracy. It needs people to believe in a sense of a we. We are one nation. A pluribus right? Of many one. That's incredibly difficult to do. Maybe the last point then, because our minds naturally go either towards conformity or individualism, and um, or maybe both at the same time. Individualism for the powerful who can enforce conformity in others, whereas the healthiest society is one in which people are able to be persons in community, distinct persons, but connected with each other. And so it also does require institutions that foster that encourage that, local institutions, national institutions, global institutions, and the it's the chicken and egg. That they become able to foster it if people from the grassroots actually start to move in that direction. So there you go. Thank you, George Lucas. That's good. The hopeful point then, maybe my last thing I'll say then is if Kamala Harris wins tomorrow, uh, great. That's a great stop guard. I'm not going to be coy about that. Definitely a lot more work to do. A lot of reckoning Christians in the U.S. We have a lot in North America. A lot of reckoning. A lot of hard questions that are being asked. They are um, by some folks. If Trump wins, it's not. Yes, it's going to be make life difficult and horrendous for a lot more people.
Not just inside the U.S.
Not just inside the U.S., but it's not the end of the story. There's always 4 years later. There's always the next day to get up and join a movement, join a community organization for good. Um, in as much as you can, as much as you are able, but like I said at the top, take care of yourself. Um, do what you need to do to get through tomorrow. If you haven't voted and you're eligible to vote, please do.
It's
Again,
the
I'm not
bare
out.
minimum.
It's the bare minimum, but tomorrow is the day it really counts. And so, um, yeah, please do vote. Go out and vote.
Vote now. Vote now.
Well,
Vote
if you're able to, yes. There. If your advanced poll is still open tonight, if not, get going. Your work should give you provisions. Should help you out. I think NAACP has a code for. I saw this for if you get an Uber to go to a polling station, they'll chip in. I think $40 or something.
right.
So that's a great initiative. All these other initiatives. So please do get out and this bit of your voice. But even again, regardless of what happens tomorrow, your voice is not stuffed out. You still have it. Um, still can get involved in making America and the world a better place. So I think that's a good spot to wrap up. Unless you have any final words.
No, I agree. It's not the end. Regardless of who wins, it's not the end of the story, and there's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah. So yes, that is a good place to wrap things up. Thanks everyone for joining us, either live or hopefully on the replay or whatnot. Let us know what you thought of our conversation tonight. If you disagree with us, please be civil. Please be kind. Anything uncivil or untoward, we know what to deal with that. Yeah, please do. We do value your thoughts and your input because that's what a healthy democracy does, by the way. So comment below. Please do give this video a like and a share. Subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. Also, of course, on Facebook and Twitch as well. Joel, where can they find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter at JIE2021. Again, JIE2021 on Twitter. You can also follow us at the Ion Canon Pod, EYEONCANONPOD. And of course, you can follow us on Star Wars Underworld Discord, where on Friday we're going to be watching Godzilla -1. So look out for that.
There you go. You can follow me Twitter, NEUG485. I'll probably tweet something about the election, maybe. Instagram and Threads, MNEUG1138. Yeah, probably. Yeah, my New York Comic Con photos. I'm finally catching up with those. My con haul is up. Bunch of Star Trek stuff, but yeah, a bit of Star Wars in there too. Actually, a bunch of Star Wars comics, those Star Wars variants there.
Nice.
And also it's behind. Here's Mace Windu, Glossibus, New York Comic Con variant there. So yeah, gotta pick that up. Check that also the photos from the con, just from panels I went to. So give that a look if you're so inclined. If you want some food in your feed, there we go. At beaches.foodie, FOODIE. Catching up with my New York Comic Con posts from that too. Yeah, just did my kind of my dinner after the con post, and I'm posting there as regularly as I can. So please do check that out on Instagram. No tractor reviewing this week. But next week we'll be back at it, and of course, right back here on the Iron Canon podcast. We're here on the Underworld YouTube channel and Facebook and Twitch and Iron Canon Twitch. We're talking about ranking the films, kind of getting nerdy, but talking about giving our rankings, but also, at least where I struggle with the practice of ranking, is hopefully a fruitful conversation as well.
I thought we were doing relatability next week, and then
no, I call it an audible. We'll
okay
with the ranking one,
oh, nice.
and then yeah,
behind the scenes.
It's the one you wanted to do anyway. So there we go.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
Well, you were good with both, but so yeah, we're gonna check out that. Hopefully, I think it's all gonna be also a fruitful discussion of why I struggle with some ranking a little bit here and there. So please do check that out. Same Space Wizard time, same Space Wizard channel, Joel. But until then, please vote. Stay safe. Let's build this thing and head home.